All right, so in this chapter, and this is on page 70, we're going to start looking at ER and IR verbs. Sorry, let me bring this back just a little bit. ER and IR verbs. All right, now in the previous chapter, okay, in chapter 1, we looked at AR verbs, all right, and those are the AR verb endings, okay? Now, the thing about verbs in Spanish is that once you learn how to work with a particular verb, you're never allowed to forget it, okay? It's kind of like math. You learned how to do addition, I don't know, first grade, second grade, type of thing. Just because you learned it and you probably took a test on it, you are not allowed to ever forget it again. So even if today you're taking like calculus 3, you're not, you still have to do addition. It's the same thing with verbs, even though we did AR verbs in the last chapter, and even though you were tested on it, you have to remember them now for, as long as you're doing Spanish, because despite all of the verbs that we did, there are a lot more out there, and they all function the same way, okay? Having said that, in this chapter, we introduce ER verbs and IR verbs, okay? Now, the good news is that ER and IR verbs pretty much work the same as AR verbs. The bad news is that they do, in fact, have different sets of endings. If you look on page 70 at the very top, you will see the various forms of ER and IR verbs, okay? So, comer, to eat, vivir, to live, all right? And so, just like you did with AR verbs, you remove the ER, you remove the IR, and then you add whatever ending is appropriate, depending on the subject of the sentence. So I wrote it just right here, just for quick reference, but once again, this is also something that you need to remember, for as long as you're studying Spanish, because it's the same thing. All we're going to end up doing is adding more verbs. All right, so if you want to say, for example, I eat, all right, yo, all right, you drop the ER and you add an O, so it's yo como, all right? If you want to say you eat, tú, all right, you drop the ER, you add ES, and tú comes, all right? If you want to say we eat, all right, nosotros, okay, drop the ER, add EMOS, nosotros comemos, all right? Same thing with vivir, drop the IR, all right? I live, yo vivo, all right? We live, drop the IR, vivimos, and so on. Okay, like I said, it's on page 70, and if you need to go over the explanations, you will notice that they're not on page 70. You'll have to go back to the explanations for AR verbs, because once again, both myself and the textbook assume that now that you know how to, work with verbs, you don't need it explained anymore, okay? So these are your endings, okay? Once again, the easiest way, obviously, is to memorize them, all right? And so you have them on page 70. In addition, at the lower part of page 70 are all of the ER and IR verbs that you need to know for this chapter, okay? As always, feel free to email with questions, and also, as a reminder, we do have a tutor for this class. Her name is Chelsea, and when it comes to grammar questions, she is awesome. So feel free to reach out to her as well.